The for sale sign swayed in the wind like it was mocking me. The white paint on the old fence had started to peel, and the porch light flickered the same way it had for years, stubborn, fading, but still holding on. This was the house where I raised my children, where my wife laughed in the kitchen every Sunday morning, where we planted the oak tree in the backyard, the one that still bends slightly toward her old chair by the window. Now it was just walls and silence. I stood there, hands in my pockets, staring at that sign. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent my whole life building a home for them. Now they wanted to sell it, like it was nothing more than another piece of property on the market. I used to think that when you give your children everything, they'd hold on to what truly mattered: love, memories, family. I was wrong. The sound of gravel crunched behind me. My eldest, Daniel, stepped out of his car, tie loosened, phone still in hand. "Dad, it's just a house," he said, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. I nodded. "Just a house," I repeated softly. But the truth was heavier than the words we exchanged. They didn't see the nights I stayed up to pay for their college. They didn't remember the Christmases when I skipped my own meals so they'd never feel hunger. They didn't know the things I had to hide, the 5 secrets that kept this family standing long after it should have fallen apart. And maybe that was my fault. Maybe by protecting them from the truth, I'd raised children who didn't know the value of sacrifice. I looked through the window, saw the ghost of our family dinners, laughter echoing in the corners, arguments that always ended with my wife's soft voice saying, "We're still family, aren't we?" That voice was gone now, and so was the glue that held us together. I took a deep breath and turned back toward the house. "If they want to sell it," I whispered, "they'll have to understand what this house really cost." The floor creaked beneath my feet as I walked inside. Every step carried a memory. Every picture on the wall a reminder of what I'd lost trying to keep this home alive. 5 secrets. 5 reasons this family survived longer than it should have. 5 things I never told my children. Because love sometimes means hiding the truth. But now they've given me no choice. Before they sell this house, they're going to learn what it's really built on. The living room felt smaller that afternoon, though nothing in it had changed. The same framed photos lined the wall. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, snapshots of a family that once looked unbreakable. My 3 children sat around the table like strangers at a business meeting. Papers were spread out in front of them, next to untouched cups of coffee. They didn't come for lunch, or for me. They came for the house. Daniel, the oldest, adjusted his tie and cleared his throat like he was leading a board presentation. "Dad, we've talked about it, and selling the house is the logical move. It's too big for you now, too expensive to maintain. You could move somewhere smaller, comfortable." He said comfortable like it was a gift. Sophie, my daughter, didn't look up from her phone. "Yeah, it's a good offer, Dad. The buyers are willing to pay cash. Full market value." She scrolled, her thumb tapping the screen as if she was swiping away everything that made this place home. Then came Michael, the youngest, always the peacemaker. "It's not that we don't care, Dad," he said softly. "But you've got to admit, this place feels old. It's time to move on. Move on." Those words landed like stones. I looked at them. 3 grown adults, my own blood. And for a moment, I couldn't recognize any of their faces. Their voices blended into a distant hum while I stared at the wooden table where their mother and I once planned birthday parties and Christmas dinners. Back then, the house was alive. Now it was a negotiation. They spoke about offers, maintenance costs, legal transfer, and market timing, words that used to belong in my office, not in my living room. I felt myself shrinking in that chair, like I was the last piece of furniture waiting to be appraised. Sophie slid a document across the table. "We already had the lawyer draft the paperwork. You just have to sign here." I stared at the pen. My reflection looked back at me from the silver clip. Tired eyes, cracked knuckles, the hands that built this house board by board. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell, "Do you know what this house means?" But anger would only make me smaller in their eyes. So, I stayed quiet. Instead, I listened. Listened to how casually they discussed selling the one thing that had held our family together after their mother's death. Every word they said chipped away another memory. Laughter, warmth, promises. I could have stopped them then. But sometimes silence is louder than shouting. When they finished talking, Daniel leaned forward. "Dad, are you okay? You haven't said anything." I smiled faintly. "I'm fine." My voice was calm, almost too calm. "If you think selling this house will make life easier, then maybe you're right." Relief washed across their faces. Sophie even smiled. "You'll see, Dad. This is for the best." I nodded slowly. "Maybe it is." Then I placed my hand on the table, the way I used to when I wanted their attention as children. They stopped talking. "Before you sell it," I said quietly, "there are a few things you should know." They exchanged confused looks. I leaned back in my chair, eyes drifting toward the framed photograph of their mother hanging above the fireplace. "If you want to sell this house," I continued, "then I suppose it's finally time you learned about the 5 things I never told you." The room went silent. Even Sophie put down her phone. For the first time in years, I had all their attention. They didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of the end of every lie they thought they understood. I leaned back in my chair and looked at each of them, Daniel, Sophie, and Michael, all so certain that selling the house was the smart adult thing to do. "Do you remember," I began softly, "the year your mother got sick?" Their eyes shifted. They weren't expecting this. "That year," I said, "I made sure none of you saw the bills. I told you everything was fine, that the insurance covered it." I smiled faintly. It didn't. I watched Daniel frown. Sophie's eyes darted away. When the hospital started calling, I mortgaged this house. I borrowed against every piece of land I had left. I even took out a loan in my own name so none of you would have to sign the papers. I told myself it was what a father should do. Protect his children, even from shame. I looked down at my hands. The veins stood out like dry rivers. I paid off your tuition, Sophie's student loans, Michael's car repairs, Daniel's business debt, all while pretending it was easy. Silence filled the room. The sound of the clock ticking was deafening. "Why didn't you tell us?" Michael asked. I looked up. "Because you were children. And because I thought, maybe one day you'd remember that everything you had came with a cost." I leaned forward. "You see this house? Every brick, every tile, every piece of wood in this place carries the weight of that debt. You wanted to sell it because you think it's just a house. But for me, it's the proof that I paid for your futures. Twice." No one spoke. Sophie's phone buzzed on the table. She didn't pick it up. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out a yellowed envelope, folded at the corners. The handwriting was familiar, elegant. "This," I said, "was written by your mother the week before she died." Their eyes widened. "I never showed it to you," I continued, "because she asked me not to. She said, 'Read it when the children forget what family means.'" I opened it carefully, the paper soft from time. My voice shook as I read. "If you love our children, don't give them everything. Let them learn that love without gratitude is hollow. And remind them that a house without memory is only wood and stone." I folded the letter again, my fingers trembling. For years I've kept her words close. I thought if I protected you from pain, it would make you kind, but it only made you careless. Sophie wiped her eyes. Daniel stared at the floor. "Your mother built this home with love," I said quietly. And I thought if I built your lives with comfort, you'd build something even greater. I see now that love and comfort aren't the same thing. The letter lay on the table between us, fragile, powerful, undeniable. Daniel was the first to break the silence. "Dad, we didn't ask for any of that," he said, frustration creeping in. I smiled sadly. "I know, but I gave it anyway." Then I reached for the small box on the sideboard and placed 3 faded folders on the table. Each had a name written in my handwriting. "Years ago," I said, "after your mother died, I registered a small business under each of your names. I put in the seed money, but I let you take the credit. I wanted each of you to learn what it means to build something." Sophie frowned. "You mean the investment companies?" "Yes. You all thought it was your idea, but it was mine. I wanted you to have something that was yours, something earned." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Well, they failed, all of them." I nodded. "Yes, because you thought money would make things grow. You forgot that work does." I opened Daniel's folder. Inside were the original financial statements. "I covered your debts each time, Daniel. I sold my car to pay the last tax penalty so your credit wouldn't be ruined. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel small. I wanted you to have another chance." He looked away. His jaw tightened. I turned to Sophie. "You remember the boutique you wanted to open? You said you needed freedom. I gave you everything. The space, the staff, the supplies. You ran it for 3 months. Then you walked away." Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, I looked at Michael. "You said you'd turn your business into something meaningful, but it turned into a name on paper. I let you keep the title, founder, because I thought one day you might want to earn it." I took a deep breath. "I didn't build those companies to make money. I built them so you'd learn pride through work. Instead, all I taught you was how easy it is to fail when someone catches you every time you fall." The words hung between us like smoke, bitter, heavy, impossible to breathe. The wind outside picked up, rattling the windows. The fire in the fireplace cracked. "This house," I said softly, "isn't just where you grew up. It's where I rebuilt everything our family lost." They looked at me, puzzled. "Your grandfather," I continued, "used to own this land. But after the war, his own brother took it, sold it, and left him with nothing. I spent 15 years working double shifts to buy it back, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck." Their faces changed, a mix of surprise and shame. "When I built this house," I said, "I wasn't just building walls. I was restoring something that was stolen. I thought if I kept quiet about the past, you'd be free from bitterness. But now I see, by hiding the pain, I also hid the pride." I ran my hand along the wooden table. "Your grandfather died believing the family legacy was gone forever. But I brought it back, not for me, for you. And now you want to sell it to strangers." Sophie started to cry. Daniel leaned back, hands clasped tightly. I met their eyes one by one. "This house isn't just property. It's redemption. It's the story of how this family refused to disappear." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, as if the past itself was answering. By now, the room felt different. The air was heavier, quieter. They weren't looking at their phones anymore. "There's one last thing," I said, my voice low. "The reason I stayed silent all these years." They waited. Even Daniel's confident expression faltered. "I found out," I said slowly, "that the 3 of you lied to each other, and to me." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" I reached for another envelope and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of financial statements, emails, and messages. "You fought over inheritance that didn't even exist. You made deals behind my back, tried to divide things that were never meant to be divided." Sophie's lips trembled. "Dad, we—" I held up a hand. "Don't. I already forgave you a long time ago. That's why I never said anything. They looked confused. Then why tell us now? Michael asked. Because I wanted to see, I said softly, if you'd remember what home means when everything else is gone. I wanted to see if love still meant something to you without the promise of money. I looked around the room, the photos, the furniture, the empty chairs that once held laughter. I stayed silent because I thought maybe time would teach you what words couldn't. But now, silence feels like surrender. I took a deep breath. So here's the truth. This house isn't just mine. It's yours. It always was. But it's also your test. Whether you sell it or keep it, I'll know who you've become. The rain had started falling outside. Slow, steady, relentless, like forgiveness coming too late. They sat in silence, staring at the evidence of a life they never really knew. The sacrifices, the debts, the legacy, the love. I looked at them one last time and said quietly, "Now you know the 5 secrets I kept. Not to punish you, but to remind you what we once were." And for the first time in years, none of them had anything left to say. The night they came back, the house looked almost the same as it did years ago. But it felt different. Still. Heavy. Expectant. I told them we needed to meet with the lawyer to sign the sale agreement. They agreed without hesitation. Maybe they thought I'd finally given in. Maybe they thought they'd won. The clock struck 7. Daniel arrived first, carrying his briefcase as if this was just another transaction. Sophie followed, her perfume faint and nervous. Michael came last, quiet as always, avoiding everyone's eyes. The table was set, but not with dinner, only a single laptop connected to the TV screen. No food, no warmth, just truth waiting to be served. They sat down. Daniel opened his folder. "Dad, before we start..." I raised a hand. "No lawyers tonight." Confusion flickered across their faces. "Then what are we doing here?" Sophie asked. "Finishing something your mother and I started," I said. I pressed play. The screen lit up with a photo, their mother, smiling in the garden, sunlight tangled in her hair. Then came the documents, scanned letters, receipts, old photos. Every secret I'd told them earlier, now laid bare in colour, proof undeniable. And finally, the letter. Her handwriting appeared on the screen, her voice, recorded years ago, filled the room. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. And if you're watching this, it means you've forgotten what we built together." Sophie covered her mouth. Daniel froze. Michael's eyes filled instantly. "Love is not measured by what we own," her voice continued. "It's measured by what we're willing to lose for each other." I watched them crumble, not out of guilt alone, but from the sudden, unbearable realization that they had betrayed more than their father. They had betrayed the woman who loved them most. Daniel stood up, pacing. "Dad, why didn't you tell us?" "Would you have listened?" I asked gently. He stopped, said nothing. Sophie sobbed quietly. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought that this was just a house," I finished for her. I turned toward the window, the reflection of her mother's face still glowing faintly on the screen. "This," I said softly, "is the last house where your mother ever laughed, the last place she called home. You wanted to sell it. But tell me, what price can you put on a memory like that?" No one answered. I walked to the fireplace and placed her photo on the mantel, the same spot it had always been. Then I looked back at them. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "But you owe her honesty. And yourselves, forgiveness." Outside, the wind howled, shaking the old windows. Inside, nothing moved, not even their breathing. That night, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Because silence, for the first time in years, spoke louder than all the noise we'd made pretending to be a family. By morning, The rain had stopped. The air outside was clear, almost painfully quiet, like the world had washed itself clean while we slept in guilt. I moved slowly through the house, touching the walls one last time. The echo of last night still lingered, the crackle of the fire, the sound of their mother's voice from that recording, the silence that followed when truth left no room for lies. I packed a small bag, just enough for a few days, maybe more. The house didn't need me anymore, and perhaps they needed its emptiness to remember what it once held. Before leaving, I wrote a note and placed it on the kitchen table beside the house keys. If you want to sell, sell. But if there's even a trace of your mother left in your hearts, keep one room, just one. Fill it with the things that made us a family. When you open that door, remember not what we lost, but what we once were. I left quietly, no goodbyes. Just the soft creak of the door closing behind me. The same sound I'd heard 1,000 times before, but never so final. Days later, I heard the deal never went through. The buyer withdrew, saying the family couldn't agree. I wasn't surprised. Guilt can build stronger walls than love ever did. The house still stands, paint fading, garden overgrown, windows dark at night. No one lives there now, but no one dares to tear it down either. They call it the old family home, but none of them call it home. Because peace always comes at a price, and sometimes that price is knowing exactly what you've destroyed to earn it. A year passed. Seasons came and went, and so did the distance between us. The house still stood, untouched, unclaimed, wrapped in silence. The oak tree in the yard had grown wilder, its roots spreading beneath the porch like a secret refusing to die. On a quiet Sunday morning, my children received an email. No subject line, no message, just a single attachment. A video file, dated 1 year to the day after the night of the truth. When they pressed play, my face appeared on the screen, older, thinner, but calm. Behind me, the old house shimmered in the evening light, the same warm glow their mother loved. "Hello, kids," I began, my voice steady but soft. "If you're watching this, I'm probably gone, or at least far enough away that silence can speak for me now." I paused, taking a slow breath. "I know you thought those secrets were about punishment, about revenge, but they weren't." The camera trembled slightly. I remember my hands shaking that day. I didn't hide those 5 secrets to hurt you. I hid them to see if love could still be heard. When I stopped speaking it, I wanted to know, when the noise of money and pride fades, will you still recognize the sound of family? Their mother's photo appeared beside me on the table. She used to say, "Truth isn't supposed to make us comfortable. It's supposed to make us real." Maybe that's why I told you everything, so we could finally be real with each other. I smiled faintly. You don't owe me forgiveness. You just owe yourselves a chance to be better than we were. A soft wind brushed across the microphone. You could almost hear the rustle of leaves outside. "This is my final secret," I said quietly. "Silence was never my punishment for you. It was my prayer, that one day you'd listen closely enough to hear what love actually sounds like." The screen faded to black. For a few seconds, only the sound of the wind remained, like an echo of peace that had finally, after so many years, come home.